The big news in Baltimore, at least today, which is spicy caliente, Derrick Henry. It's not a dream. You woke up, he's in the purple and black, and literally the suit he was rocking, purple and black. Suit. So do we want to start with what he's talked about or give the context behind it? I think, why don't we hear initially what Derrick Henry thought about coming to Baltimore and how he really felt like this was the place for him to be all along?
Where I knew I wanted to be. I love the style, the physicality that they play with on all three phases. I feel like it fits my style of play as well. It was really a no-brainer, just trying to figure out the business side of things, and glad we were able to get it figured out.
Have to agree. I mean, Rock felt like this was the place. I think all of us have talked about it, but we'll start with you since you're right on the screen with me. No-brainer, I think, is the best way to put it. You're talking about a fit, talking about what the Ravens still like to do. They like to run the football. You get the best running back that the NFL has had over the last 5 years.
Yeah, you do. And this is a guy, while he's 30 years old, some would think that, okay, maybe Derrick Henry is the tail end of his career or getting around that. Because you look at the running backs and their average shelf life, it is not that long. But Derrick Henry is built different, literally. This guy's a monster. Goes by the nickname El Tractorcito, which means, what is it, Kevin? Little tractor, even though he is not a little tractor at all. He's a big tractor.
A little tractor.
Yeah. Yep. He's a big dude. He's physical, and he's a guy that is a nightmare for defenders to tackle. I mean, the Ravens dealt with it in the past, and you saw that. It's a guy, when he's running downhill, when he really gets a full head of steam, get out of his way. It's to get off the tracks when the train's coming through with Derrick Henry. And he's a guy that finished second in rushing yards last season. He still had double digits as far as rushing touchdowns go. He had 12. And one of the biggest stats I like for Derrick Henry, 0 fumbles last season, and that's a big one. But this is a perfect fit, having him here in Baltimore, a team that prides itself on the run game and a team that wants to beat you up on the ground. So Derrick Henry to the Ravens, I think it's a great fit for both sides. We're going to see how it pans out this season in 2024.
Yeah, I think it's something that obviously people are aware that. Is Derrick Henry going to be the same guy that he was down in Tennessee? We don't know exactly, but what we do know, every time he's been on the field, except the one real year he's been injured over the last 6 years, he's been dynamite. He's been consistent. He gets in the end zone and wears down teams. I don't see that changing if Derrick Henry's healthy. I'll be completely honest. And Kevin, just so while you're fixing some things up here, it's interesting, Zach, in this case, or Kevin, if you're ready, just could you give a little bit of the context? Because the Ravens went from the number of what? The rumor was $6.5 million, or one of you guys, Zach, you start with it. It was $6.5 million, and then the deal ended up being what, Kevin?
It was like $8 million for 2 years, 2 for 16, but it's up to 20. Mm-hmm. So the guarantees, I think, are $9 million, but regardless, still, he went for the same price as Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift. And if you line all those guys up and say, hey, which one would you prefer? Not that Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift are bad players, but I mean, I'm taking Derrick Henry 10 times out of 10 there. And we saw Saquon got 13 million. Josh Jacobs got 12. So you can call it a bargain deal for someone who, even if he isn't the prime, 2019 offensive player of the year, Derrick Henry we saw, he still to me is one of the top 5 running backs in the league. And it's not really close.
Yeah. I think that's just what he still is. And imagine now, back in Tennessee, it was take pressure off of Ryan Tannehill, which we had this debate before. I thought Tannehill's always been solid, but it does help when you have a running back where all the pressure is on Derrick Henry to break through the heavy boxes, right? Well, now you have Lamar Jackson, hopefully when Keaton Mitchell gets healthy, and now you have this group of skill players on offense where they can't just focus on stopping Derrick Henry. Oh, and then by the way, you need short yardage. You need a big moment. You have the biggest dude at running back, Zach, now that's going to be bulldozering, and he's going to have a guy like Patrick Ricard leading the way.
Yeah, and I think it's really funny when people have talked about, has Derrick Henry slowed down? What kind of Derrick Henry are we getting? Are we getting this monster, can carry this team through the playoffs type Derrick Henry? Are we getting a older Derrick Henry? Week 18, Derrick Henry hit, it was over 21 miles an hour. It was the second fastest he has ever hit in his career in his most recent game played. So if you're worried about Derrick Henry losing a step, we now have the statistics that say he is in as great a shape and is as good as he is going to be. And I think it does add that different element because he is such a massive human and so powerful. But like John Harbaugh said in the press conference today, the defense for Derrick Henry starts in the A gap, but it doesn't end in the A gap. He can beat you in the A gap all the way out to the edge. If you let him get outside of you, he will take it 90. We've seen him go 99 yards to the house against the Jaguars while stiff arming guys for 85 of them. So this is just an athletic freak. These guys don't grow on trees. That's the biggest thing. This is not, you see a lot of other top running backs and, the way they're built or something, they're really good at one thing or the other. Derrick Henry has that special combination where he is just so freaking good at all these aspects of football.
Yeah, it's called being good at football. Good football player.
Yeah.
Really good football player. Some would say, hey, Rock, because Khan was asking this question,
Yeah.
how many games has Derrick Henry actually missed? Just curious. You have that number for us?
I don't have the exact number of how many games he's missed, but I do have the number of how many games he's played each year. And he's played 15 plus games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's played seven of the 8 seasons in the league. He's had 15 plus games he's played. So that's a big stat to look at, the health, the stability. The Ravens running back room has struggled with that, especially over the last couple of years. So to bring in a guy who has that record of staying healthy, being able to maintain his size, his ability, and to stay on the field, that's a big, huge factor for the Ravens. And he's a big dude. So bringing him in here, the health factor, his ability to run the ball the way he does, I mean, they just got a double whammy, as you would say.
Oh, sugar. Okay, Kevin, you had something to say. I'm going to forget that you've only seen Anchorman 2, which is just never mind.
That is
Go ahead.
crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. But with Derrick Henry, going off what Rocco said, what's even more impressive here is Derrick Henry has averaged 250 carries in every single season. Now, it hasn't distributed out that way, but 8 seasons, he's averaging 250 carries per year. And then you look at his last 4 healthy seasons, which to me is crazy because in those last 4 healthy years, 328 carries per year, which is unbelievable. So the fact that he has played in 15 or more games in 7 of these 8 seasons is unbelievable. Plus, you now have to factor in how are the Ravens going to use them, because no Ravens running back in the Lamar Jackson era has had more than 202 carries in a season. So you want to give Derrick Henry the ball. He's your best running back by a wide margin, but we've seen the Ravens kind of go with the running back by committee over the last, handful of seasons with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins and having those guys kind of split in a sense. So it's going to be a matter of how many times do you want to give Derrick Henry the ball. Of course, you want it in his hands as many times as you can, but you also want to keep him as fresh as you can for later in the year and obviously hopefully for a playoff push.
Another thing that I think is not being talked about enough about Derrick Henry is I only have the stats from 2022. I couldn't find last year's stats. He was the 7th best pass blocker as a running back in 2022 of Pro Football Focus. And that has been a major compliment from people, is that he is one of the better pass protection running backs out there. So yeah, maybe he's not going to go out there and catch 5, 6 balls a game, but he adds that element that, man, the Ravens have missed the past few years, is running backs missing assignments, running backs getting blown over, by defenders and really putting pressure on Lamar. You add in a running back who can help protect Lamar Jackson as well in the pass game, along with being that dynamic X factor in the run game. That's why the Ravens, I think, were so high on going to get Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, and I've heard the people can say, star player, blue chip player. For me, it's when you add a talented player, and Derrick Henry's he's one of the best players the NFL has seen at the position. When you add that type of player, it just feels like it's going to elevate the ones around you. So, hey, people are feeling good in Baltimore, and if you say otherwise, then don't talk to EDC about it, because EDC is fully believing that Derrick Henry's still his guy. And even just for fun, it got a little chippy in a playful way during the press conference today with Derrick Henry and some reporters. But I think one of the questions you could hear, if you listen closely, the question was asked to Derrick Henry if he had enough left in the tank. And why don't you hear what Derrick and Eric DaCosta had to say to that comment?
How much you feel you have left in the tank, or something feel like your best days are behind you? What's your response to that?
Tell them to keep watching.
They say the same thing about you, Jerry.
And look at you still here. So
Good on Derrick for saving Jerry there. Way to be on Jerry's side.
Yeah, no, Eric, and then there, we'll talk about it just in brief real quickly because I saw some comments saying here, do we get a chance to get Deebo Samuel? And then saying that was a rumor that was quickly shut down by Eric DaCosta. There's, I guess, Jason Lockenfora put that out there. And there's definitely, we're going to leave it at this, there's definitely some beef between the two of them. And that's an understatement. But hey, guys, rightfully so as far as for Eric DaCosta. Doesn't it feel like everyone wants to have an opinion about how to construct the roster, what you need?
Yeah.
I think Eric DaCosta has done a phenomenal job that regardless of what you think, if it's overpaying for a running back, he has put this team in a position to, once again, even if nothing changes, obviously the offensive line needs to be addressed here. There's pieces there's literally not spots for some offensive linemen, but he's done a fantastic job. And once again, he's bringing in a guy that should hopefully get the Ravens or help the Ravens get back to what they hope is the AFC Championship game and then get one step further, get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think for me too, it's interesting just based off of, the Ravens and how they have had so much success in their ground game over the course of, ever since really Lamar came in there. You've rotated in really, and Gus Edwards, really quality back. J.K. Dobbins, obviously the rookie season was awesome. They've been fine with that. So there is the argument, and I agree with it, where, look, if you would have put pretty much any running back, maybe Zach not named Austin Eckler in there, I do think that you could have been fine if you're Baltimore. So if that's taking a 4th round guy or you go with Justice Hill or whatnot. But in signing Derrick Henry, you both raised the floor and the ceiling of what already was the best rushing attack. So it's not like Baltimore needed help in the run game. It's not like they needed to make this move, but they understood that their strength was their strength and they wanted to make it as strong as possible. So you bring in a Derrick Henry, and the big part about this too is that earlier in Lamar's career, when, whether it was Gus or JK, whoever it was, you had to kind of pick your poison with that, but teams were always going to be favoring, okay, we know that Lamar can beat us, let's make somebody else do it. So you would always, on those RPOs and whatnot, you would probably always lean towards Lamar and say, well, look, if Lamar gets out into space, we're not going to have a good time, but we can live with a Gus Edwards or whoever. But now with Derrick Henry, as a defender, you're like, okay, well, now what do we do? Because both of those guys can win their one-on-one matchups in so many different ways. I mean, Lamar, he can juke you out of your shoes and leave you in the dust. But with Derrick Henry, he can just bowl you over. And so now if you're a defense, you have to wonder about, okay, well, are we going to put heavy packages out there to try to stop Derrick Henry, but then we lose the speed of getting to the sideline to stop Lamar? Or do we put the lighter defenders out there that can go to the sideline and stop Lamar if it gets to that, but then can get bowled over with Derrick Henry? So it just puts defenses in so much more of a bind. And I think it, again, will just elevate Baltimore's rushing offense to another level. And that's kind of crazy to say considering how good it's been.
It's like what they said on the McAfee show. It's choose your poison. Lamar will embarrass you and Derrick Henry will put you in the hospital. Choose what do you want to defend? And I agree. It that now makes it tougher because every year in his career it was, well, it doesn't really matter who the Ravens have in the running back, in the backfield, because Lamar's going to help them so much because it takes so much pressure off of them. Now there's a running back that takes pressure off Lamar.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, you have to decide, okay, yeah, if we lean Lamar, Derrick Henry's going to house this. If we lean towards, okay, we got to stop Derrick Henry, now Lamar can house it. So it really does just make the running back or the running game so much more dynamic than it already was.